fact check me with anything I say on your notebook. Like, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Digital Hollywood. My name is Bill Newell. I'm the CEO of North South Studios. We're a software and content development company. We're focused on AR, and our main product is named Hoodoo, and is an AR and MR platform. It's cloud-based and is designed to make it easy and affordable to launch AR campaigns. We have a great panel today. I'm particularly excited that we're talking about something that is really important, and is the importance of developing a strategy for extended reality. And by extended reality, I mean augmented reality, mixed reality, and virtual reality. So we have a fantastic panel that's going to help us look at how you can leverage these technologies to further your brand. And let's meet them. Let's start at the far left with John, all the way there.
Perfect.
Greetings.
Thank you. Appreciate the opening here. John Aya. I head business development and sales at Vuforia. So Vuforia, just as a little bit of background, we're the industry's most advanced and widely adopted AR platform. We currently collaborate with a network of about 500,000 active developers. And I head our business development and sales.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Leventhal. I'm a partner at the law firm of Holmes Weinberg. I do digital media and entertainment work. I'm a business transactional guy, so a lot of corporate, a lot of intellectual property. I have been heavily immersed in the AR, VR space since I started working with Magic Leap in 2011, which seems like a long time ago, but I dug this out of the closet the other day. I just wanted to show you this. This hat, which hopefully you can see is lighting up, but it doesn't do a very good job of it. This hat is 20 years old, so virtual reality has been a conversation for a really long time. But I think finally getting serious now, and I'm going to take this off, otherwise it's just a distraction. Anyway, that's kind of my story. So.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Christina from Google. I'm on the AR/VR partnerships team, working with various developers and getting them started in the space. We also have the Daydream store, which I lead, as well as the AR merchandising efforts.
Hey everybody, my name is Leon. I'm with Epson. I'm a software product manager, and I work specifically on our Moverio line of AR smart glasses. Just as a poll for my benefit, how many of you knew that Epson made AR smart glasses? The same company, Epson, that makes printers, projectors, and scanners. Yeah, 2. That's better than usual. So we yeah, exactly. So we've actually been making AR smart glasses since 2011, and since then we've launched 7 different products into the market in mass production. So we were there back when Google launched the first iteration of the Google Glass, and we've continued to iterate on our products and bring them to market. My job specifically at Epson is to work on cultivating a developer community around the glasses. So growing our developer base, supporting them with third-party hardware and software tools, and most importantly, working with businesses that are looking to pair their software with our hardware to create turnkey solutions for enterprise. So they're looking to create complete solutions on our hardware and then go to market with end users. And so I help facilitate that as well. So hopefully throughout this discussion I can provide a bit of perspective from the hardware point of view.
Thank you. Rafaela?
Hi everybody, my name is Rafaela. This is the couple. We get to share the, we get to sing together. Rafaela Camera, I'm with, I head up go-to-market and experience strategy for Accenture Extended Reality. We define extended reality as VR and AR. Accenture is a very large company, 435,000 people. We truly believe that AR and VR, so extended reality, we truly believe that we are at a human experience revolution, that the way that these technologies allow to create relationships in a different way, to immerse and to even collaborate and collaborate remotely, changes the way that people work, play, and live. So we launched the extended reality team last year in October, and here we are.
Thank you. And Oliver, we're going to put your video on, so please.
Oh, nice. Thank you so much. Hey guys, my name is Oliver. I work for a company called Media Monks, a creative digital production agency. My role there is managing director and founder of Media Monks Los Angeles. Originally from Amsterdam, hence the horrible accent. Apologies up front. But yeah, we as a company, in a nutshell, translate concepts from brands like yourself, as well as global brands, like Google here, for example. We work a lot together, and international ad agencies, and we translate your and their concepts and ideas into end products that are being used and adapted by. That's what we have a little video playing out in the background that shows some of the AR work that we've been doing recently, just to give you guys a perspective on what we do and have been doing. And it takes about 20 to 25 more seconds. So here you see some stuff that we did with the guys from Google with Project Tango back in the day. We did the out-of-the-box demo, which was a lot of fun. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Oliver. So let's switch back to the PowerPoint. All right. We're back, I think. Yes. Okay. So one thing that I think is really important. Every now and then, technology advances almost every month. You know, there's something new, but there are some key moments that really make substantial and meaningful changes to the way we work, we learn, we play, we travel, etc. And I think we're at one of those moments. We all know that personal computers revolutionize the way we work, the internet, the way we communicate, mobile make everything portable. And now I really believe that extended reality, which is basically grouping virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality together, is the next big leap. And I think it's really important that businesses start developing a strategy right now. So to get us started, let's start with you, Rafaela, who have been working a lot on extended reality. From your point of view, why is it important to get started now with developing a strategy and deciding how AR or VR can extend your brand and help you further your business goals?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, we really do believe that the revolution is happening. We're already in it. And if you look at companies, they have been through usually their innovation centers, they've been testing and trying AR or VR. We find that there is a very big difference in the way that clients approach us now versus even 6 months from now or a year from now. They do want to figure out what is the solution that they need to create depending on the problem that they're trying to solve. And instead of just creating a one-off, they do want to think about a solution, so to speak, at scale. So what are we creating? How are we going to be doing it? How are we going to be maintaining it and running it over time? The proliferation of headsets, we think, is really going to change now that the Oculus Go has come out. That's $199. It's going to be a very different game for VR. ARKit and AR Core are now in every phone. So for companies to wait to try to do XR, for us doesn't make any sense, and we certainly want to help them lead the way.
Okay, and actually, how about for you, Christina, from your perspective? I know that the prices for some of the items that you sell have come really to a level of mass consumers. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, as the technologies have advanced, and as we've seen more of a kind of a bigger need for the type of product in the industry, Lenovo just launched their standalone headset, which is it's a headset that was made in collaboration with Google. But it's the first standalone headset that has the complete 6 DAW capabilities, 3 DAW controllers. But that price has been dropped exponentially, I think, over the last couple years. And they were able to push that through because, number one, consumer need. Two, staying competitive with another product like Oculus Go. So the need to stay competitive has been a huge pusher for that. But I think overall what we're trying to do is we're trying to feed the beast in the sense that consumers are really looking for these mixed reality experiences. And to be able to put those in the hands of the users is really the most important thing for the industry today. So whether it's enterprise or consumer-facing product or brand, we want to make sure that the users and consumers have accessibility to these devices where they can consume these brand experiences or consumer experiences or games. And I think everyone in the industry today is really aiming for that goal, is to just make it accessible.
I agree. How about you, John, all the way back there? As a team member of Vuforia, you work with a lot of companies, including me,
Yep.
full disclosure. As you meet with a lot of people, what significant developments you see? What is it pushing AR and VR to become more and more success stories? Like everybody that is listed on that slide has some significant kind of presence on AR or VR or both.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the big drivers is making it accessible, right? So Vuforia, as you said, with the hardware, getting the price point down. I think with Vuforia, what we're trying to do is democratize the development of AR content and experiences. And everything we do aims to achieve that goal through cross-platform development, through integrating things like ARKit, ARCore. So I think any movement in the space that helps make AR content development easier, that allows people to make more content, more applications, more AR platforms like your Hoodoo platform, Bill, will raise the high water line, the space as a whole. And in order to get this to mass consumer adoption, which is what I think we're all concerned with in this space, we need to have the hardware at a price point that's able to be adopted, not only in one research R&D lab here or there.
Okay, thank you. How about you, Oliver, from the perspective of an agency? When clients of various sizes come to you and they're, you obviously do campaigns that encompass many traditional media, TV, etc. How do you address or how do you board the subject of VR or AR?
Thanks, Bill. That's an excellent question. I think to the point that has been made, thank you so much.
Sharing.
It's about becoming accessible, and what is super interesting for us to see, well, I'll take one step back, about 60 or 70% of the amount of briefs that we're getting in, and we're getting in a few a day, which is amazing, are AR or XR related. And that is a lot, which speaks to the fact that it's happening right now. It's not in the world of innovation anymore. It's being industrialized. It's out there. It's happening right now. It's happening today. And honestly, for me, there's a distinct difference within the world of XR when it comes to AR and VR, and I think everyone here agrees. And Daydream is doing an amazing job bridging the gap when it comes to reach in the virtual reality world. But when it comes to AR, and I'll pivot towards that for a second, is AR is happening. All of you guys sitting in this room, and I see your phone right there, have it in their hand. AR is in your pocket. You can use it right now. What I find interesting about AR is how user behavior nowadays meets distribution, meets technological maturity. It is ready. It is in the early stages, but it's amazing. It's being used it has many amazing use cases, especially giving one quick example when it comes to connecting this to product. I don't know if you guys sell product, but we do a lot of work for the guys over at the Weber, the barbecue brand. I don't know if you know those guys, probably most likely. And what we're doing there is we created an AR experience where you can stand in your garden or your back garden. You can deploy one of their barbecues in your garden, look around, play with it, interact with it. And what we call that is a marketing term. It's persuasive marketing. And persuasive marketing literally means making it tangible. If you walk into a dealership, that car seller always tries to put you in a car, have you touch everything, move around with it, and before you know it, you walk out with the lease that you did not need. Through AR, we try and mimic that behavior, and it allows for us to sell products that are not $20, but $500 or $1,000 or a few $1,000s. People can play around with it, use it, and then actually, through persuasive marketing, feel the need to get that product and actually buy it. So it's interesting, it's out there, and to your guys' point, it's happening today, right now.
Thank you. How about you?
Yeah, I was just going to add one bit. So on the topic of accessibility, I've got another poll. How many people in here are developers or have done content development either in Unity or other platforms? Yeah, so maybe not everybody. 2 years ago when I went to VRLA, there were tons of studios demoing content that they had created for very specific use cases, trying to sell their services. And the question a lot of people had was, well, how do I create this? Or where do I get this content? Where do I create these models? I'm not a coder. This time around at VRLA, I saw at least two different platforms that are taking a WordPress approach to content creation. So like a drag and drop approach that makes things a little easier for people to create content. It's what Amazon is trying to do with Sumerian. It's what Beyond XR is trying to do. They're essentially creating web-based editors that enable anybody to drag and drop content and play around with creating 360 AR, VR, MR experiences without the need to have a programming background or a computer science background, which I think is really key for really moving the needle in terms of getting apps and solutions created. So that stuff is coming. You opened with why shouldn't people wait? And I think it's because the tools and the platforms are there for people to start, and it's all very accessible at this point. So it's an exciting time to get started with content creation.
I can't agree more. And when we started developing the platform, that's exactly what we did. We took basically programming out of the way, so people can just drag and drop and focus on what they do best, which is create their content and their experiences. So Michael, you have an early start with Magic Leap and have also continued to work with other people in the space for AR and VR. So what would you recommend, like where to start once you decided that you have to move forward with AR? Is there a particular thinking process? Is there a particular indicator that you look for?
From a developer perspective?
Yeah, from jumping in.
Well, I talk about this a lot. I think you have to understand why you're doing it. That, I think, is the first question. And just to kind of tack onto this is kind of a bridge between the last one and this one, I agree with everything everybody said. It is coming, it's happening. But that having been said, it's still an early stage. We're still in the early stages of development, and I think some of the brands that are getting in right now are getting in because of the perception that they are bleeding edge, which sometimes leads to the development of an experience that isn't very much of an experience. They're doing it because they want everybody to say, oh, these guys are in AR and VR, but they don't have it really figured out yet. So I think the first thing you got to do is you have to figure out. Why am I doing this? Why is AR or VR a way to have an experience that I can't otherwise have? And if you don't have an answer for that, then you're in it for the wrong reason. Once you figure that out, then I think the next thing, and as the kind of the business, the lawyer guy on the panel, money always comes into play. So once you have figured out what it is that you want to do, and why you're doing it, it would be good to figure out who your market is, and who your market is going to determine who's going to write the check. So is it the marketing department of a major company, or is this something you think is going to be a popular item in the iTunes store or on Steam or something like that, that maybe you're going to make a lot of money off of, in which case you've got investors coming in. So I think, first of all, know why. Second of all, know who you're talking to.
Okay, so let's take the next step. Let's say you realize that you have to use, VR or AR or MR or all of them to extend your brand, to do marketing or for your products. What are the steps that any one of you, an open question, would recommend to take at that point? What are the steps that help you make sure that your extended reality efforts are well guided, and are there any tips, things that you guys think you need to observe, perhaps like do these 5 things to make sure that your strategy is correct? Or is there something, anybody who wants to jump in?
Yeah, just as a high-level point, and to tack on to your point, Michael, I think the very first place to start is, what is your end objective, and what are the KPIs behind this? Start from there, then you can work to build out whatever the experience may be on whatever platform makes the most sense for your customers. But that's the very first question I think needs to be asked, and often isn't.
I think being super realistic, if I were to go to, like their head of marketing to kind of convince some sort of XR marketing strategy, I think we would want to think short-term first. And I think a lot of brands are doing this, but trying to come up with kind of a pilot program. Like, how is this going to change your customer flow? How is it going to affect, the customer transaction path, et cetera? I think everyone's going to want to know that. How is it going to affect the bottom line, essentially? So how can you build like a small pilot program? How can you also ensure that you're actually doing a correct A/B test? I think is really important as well. I think AR and VR is very immersive. And so I think some skeptics would say kind of like, well, is this going to distract from the customers actually going through the entire purchase process? Is it going to take away from the actual experience, or is it going to add value? Is it going to be more on the brand side versus transactional? I think we have to, as we're coming into this revolution, I think we have to really think about how it's changing customers' behavior overall, and how we're going to plan for that. So a pilot program would be a great way, I think, to convince or to talk to a head of marketing to kind of get the strategy going and the programs going. But then also have that long term, like come back and say, okay, well, this is how it affected customer behavior. I think this is what it's going to look like in the long term, or in 6 months and 12 months. And I think we're all seeing it, but I think every brand is seeing a different outcome today. Finding that killer use case, that market fit for your brand and your product is going to be really important. At the same time, it's a great way to create buzz from the very beginning. So how do you really latch onto that and make sure that your implementation and your execution is just really great? So coming with a polished product from the very beginning is going to be really important.
Okay, and is the president, right now we're reliant on mobile devices for the most part when it comes to AR, and actually in large part for VR as well. So what are your thoughts, maybe you, Oliver, going from, you start with mobile devices because it's what we all have, but how you make sure that you can migrate or build towards other types of head-mounted displays or form factors?
Excellent question. I think firstly to tap onto what you guys were saying, and Michael, you kicked it off with defining your KPIs and goals when you set your strategy, I guess. Another thing to think about is to answer your question, which channel you're going to connect your concept to. So when you think about, let's go with AR for a second, and think about your concept and your channel. AR can live within Snapchat, and within Snapchat you can do less than when you have your own AR app, but you have more reach. If you build your own AR app, you have more freedom to do more powerful things with the ARKit and AR Core engines in your either your Android or iPhone device. So I think that is very interesting to think about that from that perspective and what your distribution channel is. Is it reach or and how you're gonna spend your media dollars and all of that stuff. So I think that's a good second step once you define your KPIs. When it comes to reach in your mobile phone, and let's talk about VR for a second. I think VR is very exciting. It's an amazing medium. Some people even say it's not a new medium, but the last medium, because it can carry each and every medium that existed before can live within VR. You can read the book, you can watch a movie, you can do so many more things that have never been done before. That is super interesting. Although everyone hoped that two Christmases ago or one Christmas ago, everyone would have a Gear VR or Daydream under their Christmas tree, and that did not happen. So there's a problem there with reach, I think, which is challenging. And to answer your question, Bill, I think, and John might have a say in this with his amazing platform, but bottom line, it is about a 3D engine that you want to connect to assets, and I think that's very black and white. But that is the core of the technology, and I think what's challenging with VR and trying to have it work on so many devices is that it's so fragmented. Last year at CES, there were more than 150 VR companies. How can you build towards that? It's challenging, and these guys might have a say in that as well, where AR is being led by 2 or 3 major companies. I think that it speaks to reach, I think, a little bit.
And that's really interesting because I often, I have a universal app and I build it thinking, okay, people don't want to download apps, they want to have everything in one place and just use it, and it makes it easy, right? But I go and I show this, and half the time my clients go, that's great, and I can deploy with this right now. Yes, right, I can do something in the next 5 minutes and it'll be live. I go, okay, but I want my own app.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, how do we reconcile that? You work also a lot with brands, and you recently did that fashion VR stuff. How do you reconcile when people tell you that they want their own app? Because everybody cannot have their own app. It makes it more complex to distribute. And considering that 2,000 apps go up every week, imagine, the chances of your app getting lost are huge. But if you have a centralized way of looking at things, then your content is ensured to leverage not only your audience, but the audience that was already using it. So how do you address this with your?
I mean, that's an awesome question. Certainly, if there was a place where people were going in numbers and you could publish your content there as a brand, that makes total sense, right? To try to utilize it as much as possible. But those places don't quite exist. Snapchat is a great example. Snapchat is a great example of how you can use AR and do AR advertising and have it all in one place and have a lot of people there. But for the moment, if you're thinking about having an AR experience, you still need to use an app, most likely. So your best case scenario, in fact, is to make sure that you already have your own app, and then you integrate the AR functionality within that, so you don't have to force them to download something additional to that, which has been a problem for AR for many years. AR has been around for many years. And the issue is, how do you distribute it? Why would I have to download something now just to look at something in addition to that? Sometimes you're not able to do that. I think the other thing to think about is then, how do you connect those specific apps to the rest of your channels, of your digital channels? So you don't keep people only there, but you can carry the information somewhere else. So to go back to the example of, for example, a car configurator in AR, we built one for BMW. Exactly for the reason that you don't want to go to the dealer, you don't want to try to have them sell you anything, you just want to be able to look at the car and configure it in your own living room. Just pop it up, you can walk inside, you can walk outside, you can change the colors, you can change the rims, you can do everything. But then if you just leave them there, you don't carry that information over to be able to finish your configuration and figure out what's the closest dealer and how do you do that. You kind of like lose them there. So what we did with that is we carry them over, and we, based on your geolocation, we give you only the configuration configuration that you can apply, and then it carries over to the web, and then from there you finish the rest. So sometimes we look at companies like Google or other ones to to come up with places where you can publish and you can have more eyeballs, really.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. How about you, Leon? From you coming from sort of the high-end type device, because you have smart glasses. They have been available actually for a while at Amazon and other stores. So how do you view the same issue?
When I view the mobile versus smart glasses or head-worn displays, I think the reason there's so much activity on mobile now, or apps being developed for mobile, is because everybody has one in their pocket, like Oliver said. So developers want to create apps and solutions on a piece of hardware that has a large install base naturally, because there's opportunity for more downloads, more in-app purchases, more revenue for them. And that in effect creates more utility for the smartphones themselves. So you get a nice network effect of more apps, more content, more revenue, more apps, more content, more revenue. On the consumer side, smart glasses and head-worn displays haven't tipped that scale yet. They haven't turned that corner. So you don't have this huge install base for any manufacturer, right? Not at the level that developers would like for them to invest their time and resources in creating apps and solutions. Whereas on the enterprise side, a lot of these enterprises are investing money in creating software solutions that are catered to their needs, their specific needs for their companies. So they're in effect creating their own utility on these smart glasses, and that's where we're focusing a lot of our time. I think eventually, though, as the price of headsets come down, and we've seen that now with a couple of these standalone VR headsets. They started at $800 and then $600. Now you can get them for $200. As the displays get better, the optics get better, they get lighter and smaller, battery life improves. I think you're going to start to see an adoption of smart glasses, and then at some point the tail will be, the scale will be tipped, and you'll see a lot of development on that front, and the apps will start to flow just like they are now on smartphones. The one thing I will say though is that once you've figured out that you need to develop VR or AR or 360 content, and you've chosen your platform, I think it's really important to develop from the ground up for your platform. So I've seen a lot of scenarios where someone tries to take a web application and simply port it to smart glasses, or take an app that was designed for a phone and port it to smart glasses. They don't port well because they're not optimized for that platform. The best thing I've seen so far in VR is an experience by The Void. I'm not sure if anybody here has heard of it. They have a brick and mortar at downtown Disney where they deliver a shared Star Wars experience. It's the best thing I've seen in VR so far, and it's because they developed the entire thing start to finish with the user experience in mind. You walk through this maze sort of with full VR headset, haptic vest, a fake gun, and it's phenomenal. The entire thing was developed from the ground up with the user experience in mind, with the platform in mind, and I think that's really important.
I agree very much with that. And Michael, how do you see it, like, for example, from a content perspective? What advice, or do you see any challenges in terms as you start developing for mobile and now you want to add smart glasses or a visor? Do you think that content is going to get complicated on how you get a license? Because right now you can license something, for example, to make a kid's book, but that doesn't give you the license to do, AR or VR or anything else. How is that going to get solved?
Well, again, you start with the end in mind. So, what's your product plan? I've licensed, for clients, I've licensed content, and last year I did this. I had to invent my own definition of the platforms because it wasn't really out there yet, and I wanted to make sure that whatever iterations, whatever plans my client had, we'd be able to accommodate them. And we actually, I had an interesting experience with this one client where we licensed for AR and VR and everything we could think of, and threw in location-based and all of this kind of stuff, and he released the product, which was an exorcist experience. It's a 5-part narrative story. He released it in VR, And after a few months, one of these manufacturers of those 360 treadmills came along and said, hey, we would love you to repurpose this for this 360 treadmill, and which was not super hard to do. It was something they could do. But the first question was, he called me and he said, do we have those rights? And I looked back at my definition, and certainly there it was, location-based entertainment. And so he was, so first of all, you just have to have the right to do it. For that one, it didn't, and I'm not the tech, I'm not the developer, but from that one, it looked like the repurposing of a VR experience into a 360 treadmill kind of location-based experience was not that difficult. There was certainly work to be done, but you didn't have to start over from scratch to do it.
And
Thank you.
Just one thing I wanted to add on content. I know that we, particularly here, we tend to think of content as experience or experiences, but there is a much larger part of content that companies have to create. If you look at retailers, they're asking more and more for 3D assets from any CPG company, from any company really that it is. It's a huge amount of work, it's a huge amount of money, and it's a big hurdle to try to figure out how not only how it's going to be created, but how is it going to be managed, and then how is it going to be distributed in the most cost-efficient way. Amazon is trying to figure it out with Sumeria, and there are a bunch of other ones. So it's important to think that that is happening. If that is happening, it means that we're already in the space of really creating the XR solutions and not just playing with it. I believe the latest stat is that 3% of commerce will come from AR by 2020, which is a year and a half from now. So it's not happening in a couple of years. It's happening now.
I agree. John, do you want to add something towards that?
Yeah, so one other thought, there's kind of two directions I've seen folks come at this. One is we want to make an AR, VR, mixed reality experience, and what would be compelling within these constraints. The other is we have this business problem, and AR or VR is a great tool in our arsenal by which to solve it. Those are the experiences that I've seen, both deliver ROI, but those are the low-hanging fruit, right? You have, and there's a zillion different use cases, but one example being an Under Armour, right? They are currently experimenting to recognize different products and logos and labels to allow you to visualize, customize, change the particular apparel you're looking at then and there in store and gather that customer data. They had the product, they had a mobile app, and they said, hey, why don't we utilize computer vision and AR to solve the visualization, sales, inventory management questions that we had. So that's another approach by which I've seen folks go about this with a lot of success. Is not, I have an AR need, what can I build, but I have a business problem, and this is a tool by which we can use to solve it. And the technology is there to do so if you go about it from that frame of mind.
I think that stuff is happening now, even more so. The entertainment is kind of still aspirational in a lot of ways. And one thing on the entertainment side, I think Rafaela flagged something for me, which is a lot of film companies, as they are filming their movies now, are creating digital assets that they intend to use later. So they're kind of thinking about that in advance, so they can port that over to some experience. So at least you start with a base of digital assets. But what John is saying, I think, is this is where things are happening right now. In AR, you have factories. You've got there's all sorts of enterprise use cases that exist today and are saving companies money, and they're actually spending on products right now, on hardware, because it is saving them money in their production process or wherever. And there's, when you look at architecture, you look at rental properties and things like that, you're seeing these things are helping businesses today.
I completely agree. And so I remember about 2 years ago, 3 years now, when I started working with AR, I basically had to repurpose, media. So old footage or something and make something out of it, generate targets, all kinds of crazy stuff. It made it much harder. But now my clients actually ask us exactly what you said. We're going to be shooting a commercial. What can we do to extend it? So because it takes just a little bit. It just takes, a few extra shots, a couple things that you can do, a couple more hours of video,
Maybe
and
an
then
extra
and then
camera.
you're done. You're in good shape. So let's talk a little bit about that. So we're moving now into a space where we show in one of the slides, every big company is all in on this. Microsoft, Facebook, Google, Apple, Amazon, they have put billions of dollars into this. And the big brands are already using it, Coca-Cola, IKEA, et cetera, just to mention a couple. So now people realize that they have to do, there's a few extra steps. In your experience, maybe we can start with you guys who have done already some production on this. What difference you see between, what it was to shoot, a video piece and now shoot a video piece but thinking on AR or VR?
Yeah.
Either one.
So-
Since you're sharing the mic.
Yeah.
Or together.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge, if I may. And the way we're trying to tackle it is by what we call a smart production approach, and we already hinted towards that. But what we try and do is create more content with the same amount of effort, and we put a variable against it we call the cost per asset. So if MediaMonks, we as a company approach something like that and we have to tackle it, we try and indeed bring an extra shoot crew or bring an additional camera or whatever it is that we need to do in order to get those extra amount of assets to make sure we can adhere to the desired reach of the brand. I think it boils down to, if you have to think about it, think about your available marketing mix, think about your channels, and think about how you want to distribute your content and the device or the platform you want to produce it for. And with that in mind, you're able to create the content that you need either today or even have it on the shelf for down the line. Because one of the challenges that we have with both AR as well as VR is that it is a landscape that it changes every day. Probably a new feature or something happened whilst we were talking right now, which is interesting, and we should use it to our advantage, but that's the honest truth.
Yeah, I would say definitely the problem needs to be solved in pre-production. So you have to have an idea of how you want to extend whatever it is that you're already doing. And if you take VR and if it's 360 or 360 with interactivity, there are ways of extending maybe a commercial shoot or anything else that you're doing. And if in pre-production you determine what else you want to shoot, you can do it then, and then you just extend a little bit what you're doing, and you find yourself with assets that you can use and to create a VR experience. The other thing that I think needs to be kept in mind is that the storyline has to come first. So if you're creating a 360 experience of any kind, even with interactive elements, which you do want to have, otherwise it's boring and it's flat. First you have to stitch together the story, and once you have that and that makes sense and you can follow that, then you can determine where you want to add interactivity. If you try to do it the other way around and start with the technology and the interaction, probably is going to fall flat a little bit, and people are not going to follow as much. Okay.
Anybody wants to add anything else to that? No? Okay, we move on. We talk about some challenges, AR is here, VR is here, and you can use it, but it's not necessarily easy, and you really need to think a lot about your strategy and what is it that you want to share, what is it that you want to tell. So, Christina, with the Daydream, how you have a lot of different experiences in there. How do you guys go about deciding on what kind of content should be there? What have you observed from the pieces that are most successful? What do they have in common?
Yeah, so Daydream is a platform that everyone can develop on today, but what we've seen be really most successful on the Daydream VR platform is actually immersive media. So 360 videos have done really well. We are seeing, though customers might believe or the first reason that they go and purchase a VR headset is because they want maybe a gaming experience or some sort of app experience. They're actually going in and consuming mostly video experiences. So Netflix, YouTube, they perform really well. And then on the video side, just kind of digging down more specifically, I think it kind of speaks to the fact that we, I think as humans, today, society thinks of VR as a way of going somewhere you can't go normally. And so in that same strain, customers are really into like the ocean, underwater, space videos. They're the skydiving and these kind of experiences that really you can't do by yourself on a daily basis, or maybe for some people it's not going to happen in their life. So they're really excited to consume these kind of these out of these world kind of experiences that only virtual reality can bring to them. So we're seeing those kind of formats be really popular.
Okay. You have been awfully quiet for a while. From the Epson perspective, how do you see what things do you see working from all the content that you guys have?
Like I said before, I think largely our focus is on facilitating enterprise solution development. So I mentioned previously that Epson focuses mostly on manufacturing the hardware and then providing a sort of a layer of platform support so that application developers can do the development on their own. We don't do a whole lot of in-house development per se. So a lot of our focus is on enterprise. I know that's not really the theme of this session, but some examples, for instance, are remote support and service. So if you're repairing a huge jet engine or something like that, and you're just the field technician, but the person who engineered it or designed it sits in Kansas somewhere, and you want to do a video call with audio and have that person see what you see and annotate what you're seeing in your screen. That's called remote support and service. It's a huge use case for the smart glasses space. And that's sort of where we focus most of our time. On the consumer front, though, we have had success with apps that are published for our glasses or developed for our glasses and published on our app store. One really big use case is drones. So I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with DJI drones, but they're pretty high-end camera drones. They're not meant for racing. They're meant for high-end camera capture. And we're DJI's official AR smart glasses partner, because it turns out a lot of pilots of these drones want to be able to do what's called first-person view, or see what the drone sees when the drone's in the air. And we have a binocular HD display that allows you to do that, and because it's transparent, you can maintain line of sight with your drone. Anyway, I say all that to say that one of the coolest apps that was developed on our app store that has immediate utility for a lot of these drone pilots. And by the way, DJI sold over 2 million drones just in the U.S. last year, so they're selling a lot of these things. But one of the apps that was developed for our glasses was a training application that allows you to fly a virtual drone in 3D, 360 space without the risk of crashing it. And it's a virtual DJI drone. The physics are true. You fly it with an actual DJI remote with our glasses on, and it's a virtual drone that you fly in virtual space, and it's a really great app. It's something that had immediate utility for these millions of pilots that are flying DJI drones today.
Thank you. So as we're getting near the end, I want to ask a quick question to all of you, and then perhaps take a couple questions from the audience. So just succinctly, and starting with you, John, all the way at the end, what is the most interesting development that you have seen for AR or VR this year?
Quite a few. In the space that we're talking about here, I would say, just a few weeks back, the Coachella application utilized Vuforia and augmented reality and had hundreds of thousands of downloads and active users over a few weekends. The Under Armour application I mentioned as well, and some of the experimentation there. Those would probably be in retail and in media, the two. Yeah, quite a few other enterprise developments, but not as applicable.
Michael?
So I guess what I'm seeing in my practice right now is a lot of location-based entertainment projects coming up, and location-based can be anything from ships to malls to to Dave and Buster's to experiences that are created specifically for that, like Meow Wolf is doing some really interesting things, and The Void and things and all of that. It's hard for me to tell whether this is going to continue to be huge because they've got throughput issues in just about all these places where how many people can you put into an experience for how long, and how do you monetize that? But right now, I think because of the state of the technology, because not everybody has an amazing piece of gear at home, there is an opportunity for people to have really cool experiences out in the world, and I'm just seeing a lot of things come across my desk in all sorts of areas that are trying to take advantage of that.
Okay, thank you. Christina?
Yeah, I think probably in the last few months, AR Studio from Facebook announced at F8, and just opening up kind of these AR platforms like Lens Studio from Snapchat, and allowing creators and developers to have more open source resources to create augmented reality or even virtual reality experiences is really exciting, because the industry is only as strong as the use cases and the products that are brought to the consumers. And so having all these huge names come and say, hey, we have these SDKs or we have these open source studios for you to work in, and make it more drag and drop and turnkey is probably the most exciting thing that I've seen in the XR space.
All right.
So for me, I guess first on the VR side, two things that are exciting that we kind of already talked about. One is standalone VR headsets. So you now have better quality VR than what was delivered on like smartphone-powered VR headsets, and you're not tethered to a PC, so you're somewhere in between. So you're still getting a high-quality VR experience and not being tethered. I thought that was pretty cool. And some of these new standalone VR headsets come with very mobile 360 cameras that you can capture content and view it instantly on your headset, which is a great development. I think Lenovo is actually the one that's powered by Daydream actually does that. The other big VR development is that the increase in these shared VR experiences like The Void. I think it's going to be a common thing. It has the potential even to do some disruption in the traditional sort of cinema space, just because it's a great way for groups of people to experience these really immersive VR experiences. But like Michael said, I think throughput will be an issue. On the AR side, I come back to the introduction of these tools that are making it easier to develop content. So I encourage you all to look at Amazon Sumerian or Beyond XR, and familiarize yourself with these tools because they're making it very easy to create content.
Thank you.
For
Rafaela?
me, it's really the advancements in any headset or anything that has to do with mobile, either AR or VR. So again, we discussed it before, but Oculus Go or Lenovo or anything else like that, and also ARKit and ARCore being enabled phone. What we found is that sometimes it's difficult to close clients on starting to work on projects because they don't know what they should be deploying them on. And there has been a lot of hesitation, well, but now if I buy this 3 months from now, it's not going to be the right headset or the right glasses or whatever else. I think we're coming to an initial point of enough standardization that you can buy something and feel comfortable that you can use it for the next 2 years maybe. And that for our clients, for our customers, is making a difference. The other thing that really excites me that's not here yet but it's the idea of being able to connect it to 5G and really having experiences, really heavy experiences on mobile headsets of any kind that will make the difference completely for everybody.
Thank you. Oliver?
I agreed with all the technical developments from a content perspective. Looking at VR, Beyond, you mentioned it already, but it's interesting to keep an eye out on the developments when it comes to content in the entertainment and gaming world, when it comes to VR, as well as the business-to-business software, I guess, or training or guidance tools. I think that's from a VR perspective. Keep an eye on the developments when it comes to content on that front. When it comes to AR, I believe it's very interesting to, or the next step, I guess, is to mix the digital user flow with the physical space and see where that goes and connect it to retail, event, product. I think product in general, I think that's the next big thing. And to make that a little bit more tangible and looking at what Snap is doing, what Facebook is doing, what Google is doing, future state, don't hold me to it, but I think if you start thinking about your camera as your actual browser, that is where AR is going to be. So right now, again, in each and everyone's pocket, if you have an iPhone, if you activate your camera, you point it to a QR code. I know QR is a bit outdated, but it actually initiates a browser or experience, whatever is connected to that AR, whatever IP address is behind that QR code. What is interesting is the future state of this, where those hurdles are being removed and the actual experience happens within the camera, real-time AR through your camera becoming your browser. So I'm very curious to see where that will take us, but that's a good, I guess, perspective to think about that.
Thank you, and I agree with that, and I think it's really important, the untethered part. The fact that you don't have to be plugged into a computer, so you have full range, I think is very significant. So before we go into the questions, just quickly, if anybody wants the PowerPoint, I have about a dozen other slides that have a lot of key information about all of the things that the panel has been talking, links to a lot of videos. And this video, which is really hilarious if you guys have the time to watch it. If you want to have the PowerPoint, just let me know and give me your business card and I'll mail it to you. So let's start with some questions. The gentleman right here.
I've been an investor since the early days of the internet. And back then, the early days, it was about the wow factor and the flying baloney, with really no recognition of turning that into an actual product or service sale. Obviously, that's changed over the last few decades. Where do you see AR and VR in terms of taking an experience and engagement to ultimately a conversion to a sale or product or service versus other media? Where is it now, and where do you think it's going to play going forward? Open it.
I think Oliver kind of mentioned it earlier, but using the camera as a browser. So something that happened, that was announced at I/O, was the ability to, so Lens has actually been announced for a couple years, but Lens is really making it one step closer to exactly what you're saying. You identify the product, or you can shop the look essentially. So I can say like, oh, I really want her jacket, point my camera there, and it's gonna take me right to the shopping flow. So I think we're really close. I think it's just a matter of how many 3D assets are available, how many partners come on board, and how many products we get into the database essentially, so that we can actually have a really good search experience, and that'll allow for customers to really trust the results that they're getting, and eventually make it almost just extremely natural to search for products this way and then to buy products that way.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think I would say it's early days of the internet again. I think we may be a little bit past that, but what everybody's talking about here, the phone as a browser is an awesome thing. It's going to be huge, but in order for it to be huge, we need the assets. We need an AR cloud that is being developed and isn't really there yet. We need the 5G. There's some major infrastructure things that are being built right now, but they aren't here yet. So if you were going to create something, and invest in an experience that has to leverage that, you better be prepared to hold on for a couple of years before you get mass adoption, because it's just, you can see it from here. It's that Paul Sappho quote, which I love, which is never confuse a clear view with a short distance. So, and that's what killed a lot of internet investors in the 90s. So.
Just one more thing. When you think about experiences, I know we tend to think about consumer-facing experiences. There are a lot of experiences that are already built and are being used within companies. think about a CPG company and how they are already creating stores virtually, so they can play with them and they can see where they want to place things, what the aisles are going to look like, not only but they design their products and they collaborate with external partners or employees as avatars in those specific virtual stores to determine where they want to place things, to test things out, to see where people are going to stop or what they're looking at or what works and what does not work. Those things are happening right now, and those companies are spending a lot of money on it right now. So the ROI is already there.
Thank you. We have time for one last quick question. Anyone? Anyone? Okay. Thank you very much. You guys have been terrific. Thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy the conference. Thanks a lot.